Hi, I'm Bob O'Donnell, Superintendent of Schools. I appreciate you hanging with us there as we iron that out. Thank you for taking time this evening to tune in to learn about our fall options and for sharing your questions with us. This program will be recorded and available for viewing later this evening. Because we have 10 members of our district team here in the room this evening, we are adhering to the same safety requirements that our faculty, staff, and students will have: physical distancing and mask wearing. These two steps are central to our health and safety plan. During the past 48 hours, we've received many questions. We know that many more will come to us this evening through the chat box on your screen, and we will answer as many of those as possible. As you know, we now have 3 options for all K-12 students: in-school, remote, and virtual academy. I appreciate all of the thoughtful questions and perspectives we've received throughout the summer months. And I hope you know that our intentions remain focused first and foremost on the safety of our students, faculty, staff, and administrators. Obviously, we know more about where we stand with our safety plan from feedback from our faculty educational planning teams and many conversations throughout our community. We also know more about the virus and how our health and safety plan has evolved through collaborating with numerous medical and science professionals. With me here this evening are Christine Merritt, Director of Curriculum for Secondary Education, Deirdre Bauer, Director of Curriculum for Elementary Education, Jean Canals, Director of Student Services, and Chris Rosenblum, Director of Communications. Handling the live chat tonight will be Will Stout, Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education, and Nabil Mark, Media and Communications Manager. So now let's get this started, and I'm going to turn it over to Jean. Thank you, Jean.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. So I'm just going to go over some updates that have occurred recently, and then some questions that have come up with regards to the safety plan. So on July 16th of 2020, the Department of Education updated their safety plan recommendations. In summary, these changes include the following. They officially changed social distancing to physical distancing throughout the entire document. And then related to returning to school, these changes were made. And I'm going to read this closely so you have a better understanding and can follow along. Staff and students with fever or symptoms associated with COVID-19 and no known exposure to COVID-19 may return to school when they are asymptomatic and have been fever-free for at least 24 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication, or have confirmation of an alternative diagnosis from a healthcare provider that explains the COVID-19-like symptoms. If staff or students have a negative COVID-19 test and were not in close contact with the case, he or she can return to school once there is no fever without the use of medications for 24 hours and no other symptoms. A student or staff member who is quarantined following close contact with the case may not return to school until cleared so by the Department of Health. Noting that a negative test does not clear an individual for return, and the entire quarantine period must be completed. Clarification was also provided as to when parents should keep students home or the school nurse should send a student home. This was divided into 2 groups. Group A, you must have one of the following symptoms: fever of 104 or higher, cough, shortness of breath, or difficulty breathing. Group B, you must have 2 or more of the symptoms: sore throat, runny nose and congestion, chills, new lack of smell or taste, muscle pain, nausea or vomiting, headache, diarrhea. 2 points of clarification that I would like to make that have been brought to our attention from the community include information about contact tracing and the 15-minute continuous instruction window that we had discussed. Related to contact tracing, we are waiting on further guidance from the Department of Health in determining what this process will look like. Specifically, we're waiting on what questions will be asked and what does close contact mean at each level, elementary, middle, and high school. We do have a meeting on Monday with the safety team, and some of those close contacts questions will be asked, and Department of Health contact will be available who has close connections to them. In reference to the 15-minute window of continuous instruction, Please know this was never in our safety plan, but was given to us as guideline to provide small group instruction within a person's physical distance window. We have since been given recommendation to rethink this idea, and we will determine other measures to provide small group or one-on-one instruction that could include remote processes. In closing, please know the health and safety team is monitoring updates and recommendations, and we will be updating the plan accordingly with the expectation that there will most likely be more updates prior to the start of school. Thank you. And next, I would like to introduce Chris Merritt.
Thank you, Jean. I'm the Director of Secondary Curriculum, and I'd like to do a quick overview of the 3 options available for secondary students for fall. In every option, students will be in the semester 4x4 schedule, which reduces the number of total classes they have at any time. The first one is the in-school option. Students may attend school in-school classes every other day, split by alphabet. On the days they are not in school, they will join their classes for synchronous live instruction using a video meeting tool. The next option is synchronous learning, or synchronous remote learning option. It allows students to stay home and join their classes every day through a video meeting tool. They have full access to State College teachers, curriculum, and courses. And the courses they would have normally been scheduled for, they will take at the normal time schedule that they are offered during the day. The third option is the virtual academy. This provides a mostly self-paced asynchronous learning with the State College teacher supporting the students along the way. Students will use Edgenuity platform that is aligned to PA standards. The teacher will check in with the student regularly, grade the work, and provide help and reteach and supplement the material as needed. We'll have more questions about those coming up. Deirdre?
Thank you, Chris. I'm Deirdre Bauer, the Elementary Curriculum Director, and I'm going to overview the 3 options we have for K-5 students. The first is the in-person neighborhood school, where students would attend school at the building that they typically attend school daily for the entire day. And during that time, we'll be following our district health and safety plan. In those classrooms, there will be smaller class sizes so that we can meet the requirements of our health and safety plan. Our next option is the district remote option, and that is taught by State College Area School District teachers using our curriculum. There's a daily schedule that students will follow at home that will mirror an in-school experience. The lessons, students will have lessons in each of the content areas that are short, and then it'll be followed by students completing assignments related to those lessons. Using a video conferencing tool, we'll be able to record those lessons to allow some more flexibility for families if they need to view the lesson at a later time. And our final option is the virtual academy, also taught by State College Area School District teachers. There are virtual academy learning experiences that are assigned by the teachers, and it follows the same standards as the State College Area School District curriculum. In this option, it's a more asynchronous approach to allow more flexibility for families. So I'm going to turn it to Chris Rosenblum.
Thank you, Bob, Jean, Chris, and Deirdre for those remarks. Now we'll turn to the questions submitted ahead of time by parents and guardians. Chris, the first one is for you. Will secondary remote students be attending virtual live classes every day while in-person students attend every other day?
Yes. All of our students have class every day, whether it's in person or remote synchronous.
Thank you. Bob, this question's for you. This parent says, I'm hearing a lot of families stating that they are sending their children back into school and have mask exemptions. Are there mask exemptions?
Chris, we expect to make exceptions in very rare instances. For any medically required exceptions, we will develop an accommodation plan that will require additional safety protocol. This might include face shields with incorporated added protection.
Thank you, Bob. Back to you, Chris. This parent would like to know, will the in-school teacher be monitoring both a live and virtual class at the same time?
Good question. The answer is yes. So all of our students will be together as they would be in a classroom. The same number of students will be in the class, and we have tools that will help the teacher monitor students in both ways.
Thank you, Chris. Jean, this one is for you. Under the health and safety plan, what is the status of performance group classes such as orchestra, master singers, choir, band?
Thanks, Chris. Yes, we're working on developing both of those plans currently in hopes to take them to the board in early August.
Thank you, Jean. Bob, This individual would like to know, why is there not an everyday in school option for secondary students?
Chris, this is driven by the fact that we need 6 feet physical distancing between all people in our secondary schools. If every student was in each of our secondary buildings, we would be unable to do this in every classroom throughout the day, including during lunch.
Thank you, Bob. Deirdre, this one is for you. Is it possible for elementary-age children who choose remote learning to be with students and teachers from their schools?
Students will be assigned to a district remote classroom that will include students from across our school district. There may be students from their school, but it will depend. We'll certainly try to group students from their own school when possible.
Thanks, Deirdre. Bob, this person would like to know, will my 6th grader and 2 high schoolers who have the same last name go to school on the same days? Also, in the every other day model, will secondary students go on Monday, Wednesday, Friday one week, and Tuesday and Thursday the next?
Yes to both. Students will be driven by our A through L and M through Z alphabet cohorts.
Thanks, Bob. Jean, this question's for you. This person would like to know, will there be masks available to students if a mask should rip or not fit correctly?
Yes, in addition to purchasing our own masks, we also have a mask initiative taking place in our community. We're looking to create over 8,200 masks, to provide students who need them for at least enough for each day, so in packages of 5 for each of those students who need them, in addition to having extras in the office, extras in the classroom, and extras in the nurse's office. The person who's heading up this initiative is Terrell Salter, and you can find her contact information in the chat box. She can always use more mask makers if people are available and willing to do that.
Thanks, Jean. Bob, this is a mask-related question for you. Will there be disciplinary action if a student does not abide by masks or distance guidelines?
Chris, it really depends on the circumstances around why. If it's a behavioral issue and a really young student or a student incapable, would work with the student and their family to help support them to develop mask wearing comfort. But bottom line, we're not going to permit students in the classes in our schools who refuse to wear masks. We have other options with our remote and virtual academy options for those students.
Thanks, Bob. Chris, back to you. This person would like to know, will teachers have to teach material twice because of the every other day schedule, or would one group miss out if a lab is involved?
Thank you for that question. So in our old model, teachers were going to teach the material twice to both sets of students. In our new model, no. Every day is new learning. And of course, that is always at the discretion of the teacher, how fast and how far they can go, and monitoring students and giving them feedback.
We'll stay with you, Chris. This person would like to know, on the at-home days, will there be synchronous learning, or will it be self-directed at the student's leisure?
Well, we're calling it synchronous, but again, the teachers always provide time for work and reading and things like that during class. I guess you could consider that asynchronous, but yes, they're considered synchronous classes every day. But there will be time built in for working and things like that.
Thanks, Chris. Bob, this question's for you. This person asks, have any changes to ventilation in school buildings been initiated? Will classrooms without windows be used at all?
Thanks, Chris. We have worked with our engineering teams to analyze our HVAC systems. We're adjusting some of our units to maximize, well, we're adjusting actually all of our units to make sure that we're maximizing outside air delivery, which would reduce the amount of air that's being recirculated. Additionally, most of our classrooms have operable windows, which could also help in reducing recirculated air. For the classrooms where we do not have operable windows, we are purchasing standalone HEPA filtration air cleaners for those rooms.
Thanks, Bob. Jean, this is a related question. Will classrooms be allowed to have open windows?
Yes, and this is encouraged where possible, as Bob had just said.
Thanks, Jean. Chris, this person would like to know, what are the attendance requirements for synchronous learning, given that there may be obstacles, such as technology, to being able to join remotely from home?
Thank you. Nothing more frustrating than technology issues, as we saw at the beginning of this meeting. So we're going to be flexible and work with families. We have a wonderful IT support services and help desk that can help students troubleshoot from home, and we'll do everything we can to help with that. But no doubt we'll be forgiving if there are internet issues and things where students can't log in at the moment they're supposed to.
Thanks, Chris. Deirdre, we turn to you. If we enroll our elementary students for the in-school option, this parent asks, can we change that option to remote synchronous instruction and/or virtual academy at any time?
We'll ask that families reach out to their child's principal to discuss available spaces. It's more challenging to move students into the in-school option.
Thanks, Deirdre. As a follow-up, Chris, what about secondary students?
So if you choose the virtual option, we ask you to stick in that for the whole semester and finish out the courses. They don't exactly match our in-person classes. But it's much easier to switch between the remote synchronous and the in-school experience because you're in the same class with the same teacher doing the same curriculum. So it's very easy to do that.
Thanks, Chris. Another remote learning question. If families choose the in-school option, would students be able to access the synchronous remote learning in the event of a school closing for weather or if they are sick?
Yes, they can.
And Deirdre, what about elementary students?
We'll work with families to provide work as we always do for extended absences so they can remain connected to their classroom and the assignments.
Thanks, Deirdre. Chris, this person would like to know, how will semester-long classes at the high school level be handled?
So a good way to think about the semester schedule, or the 4x4 as they call it, every class is basically cut in half and it's every day. In our old AB schedule, or the 6-day schedule at the middle school, they had their classes every other day. So it's the same amount of time for the courses, it's just a different configuration of how the time is given. So I'm sorry, so the semester course is actually done in a marking period, but it's every day.
Thanks, Chris. Jean, this person would like to know, will sick students be tested at school or will parents be asked to make a doctor appointment?
Yeah, unfortunately, the district does not have the means to do tests within the school, but we'll do our best to remove barriers to students and families who will need to be tested.
Jean, another question for you. Who will be notified and how if a student, faculty, or staff member tests positive?
So individuals exposed based on the contact tracing procedures will be notified. The classroom will be notified, the school and the district will be notified via email. We will do our best to eliminate any kind of identifiable information.
Thanks, Jean. Switching gears, Chris, this person would like to know, how can a student graduate early if they can only take 4 classes per semester?
If they've met all the graduation requirements, they can graduate early. It's still possible depending on what courses they have left to take, and that's really a case-by-case basis.
Thanks, Chris. Jean, this person would like to know, since desks are 6 feet apart in classrooms, will students be able to take off their masks?
No, masks will be enforced 100% of the time.
Chris, I'm going to refer to our health and safety plan, which we've continued to work on and have worked on for the past couple months, and our board has approved the plan. And I first want to say, if the state closes school buildings, that would supersede our local decision. In our health and safety plan, we outlined our collaborative approach with our team of medical and science professionals. Together, we're going to be monitoring 4 key variables, and I'll share those. The number of reported positive cases related to our school district, obviously employees, students. The number of staff impacted by quarantine requirements.
Deirdre, this question's for you. For elementary students, will paper and pencil be used, or will in-school instruction consist mainly of work on Chromebooks?
Students will use both paper and pencil as well as Chromebooks. We've created learning boxes so that each student can have their own individual materials. Students who are in the remote classrooms will also have a learning box so that everybody has the same materials.
Thanks, Deirdre. Bob, this question's for you. If my student chooses the new remote learning, does she have to attend Zoom meetings every day?
Yes, Chris, this is designed for students to attend class on a daily basis. We were talking a little bit earlier today about this, and I'll open it up to Chris Merritt to share a little bit about her thoughts on that.
So one of the reasons for the synchronous requirement is that we want students to engage with one another and collaborate and continue the really excellent instruction that they get at State High. And doing that asynchronously tends to reduce a lot of teenagers' motivation to do the work because it's not an engagement. And we are going to do everything we can to make sure that they are prepared for their future. So every day, synchronous learning. But it doesn't mean they'll be on Zoom for 80 minutes listening to a teacher talk. As I've said, there will be activities, there will be work, there will be readings, writings, and other things they're doing just like they're doing in the classroom.
Thanks, Chris. And staying with you, this question asks, will high school students be able to take their previously scheduled electives via remote learning, such as a health professions course in the Career and Technical Center?
Yes, that's a great question, and the answer is yes. The students have access to the full catalog of courses as a remote synchronous student. Some of our courses are no doubt going to be more of a challenge if they were a more hands-on approach, and we'll work through solutions to that with the teachers in each individual situation. And if you are fully remote and you are interested in the CTC programs, especially as a level 2 or 3 student, please contact Dr. Ben Morden, our CTC director, and he'll work with you on options.
Thank you for that. Chris, this parent asks, if we choose the virtual academy for our student, will he be able to take some remote courses through the district that are not offered through the academies, such as electives and AP courses?
Another good question, but the answer is no. Due to the complexity of scheduling, if you are a virtual academy student, we really need you to pick from the virtual academy catalog, with the exception, again, of our Career and Technical Center CTC classes. And for those, you can contact Dr. Ben Morden to discuss those options.
Thank you, Chris. Jean, this question is for you. This question states, your health and safety plan says that teachers will work to take students outside for classes as much as possible. Could you provide more information on what that will look like?
Sure. So teachers may take students outside as long as they're socially distanced in a setting. They can sit on the ground or under pavilion. Teachers will investigate this option, and if it makes sense for their class and their location, they can implement it.
Thanks, Jean. Chris, turning back to you, this question asks, won't live video instruction be a repeat on 2 consecutive days, since classes for in-person students are the same, teaching half the students one day and the remainder the next day?
In the old plan, that was the case, but in the new plan, there's a new learning, new lesson every day. So they will not be repeated.
Thank you, Chris. Bob, to you, if a student starts out in face-to-face classes and has to switch to online learning because a family member becomes ill with COVID-19, will the student be switched to virtual academy or synchronous remote learning?
Thanks, Chris. Well, for this scenario, for a secondary student who's in school, it is very easy for them to just continue in their current schedule with their current teachers as is. They just simply would operate remotely during the time period where they need to be out of the building. For an elementary student in this scenario, I would suggest that the family speaks with the school nurse and collaborates with the elementary school principal to determine what option would be best for them moving forward, or if working in a manner with the teachers in the same way that we have students who are out for illnesses for extended periods.
Thank you for that explanation, Bob. Chris, turning to you, if a family selects the in-person option, will they have the option to switch to synchronous remote learning at any time?
Yes.
Okay.
It does not impact their schedule or their teachers or their courses at all.
Thanks, Chris. And Bob, this person would like to know, will Penn State student interns be physically in the classrooms with students?
Our largest number of interns have always been in our elementary schools, and all of those Penn State interns will be placed in remote classes. So no, they will not be in buildings. For our secondary program, since we just made this change, we are working to collaborate with the students that we do have to shift them into a remote status.
Thanks, Bob. Chris, for the virtual academy specifically, can students switch in and out of that at any time?
We're asking families to pick the model they would like for fall. They cannot switch in and out easily at any time. For continuity of learning, mainly, and since they are self-paced, they're not switching out necessarily the same place where the course is. Also, the courses offered in Virtual Academy are not identical to all of the courses we offer in person. For example, there's a marine science course and some other courses online in the Virtual Academy that we don't have an exact match for in person, so there's no class for that student to transfer into. For that reason, we're asking that those switches happen at the semester change.
Thank you for that, Chris. Bob, a couple of transportation-related questions for you. The first one is, when selecting transportation needs, are we selecting for August 2020 through December 2020, or are we selecting for the entire school year?
Right now, our thinking is that we're expecting families to give us their best decision for the fall, thinking about the whole year. However, should the family's needs and status need to change, just contact our transportation office directly so that you can communicate and we can make an adjustment for you.
Great. And the second question is, this parent has said that they've heard of the drop-off pickup windows. Windows will be expanded, and asks, what will the times be?
We do intend to expand those. I don't have those. We don't have them finalized just yet. Some of that it's a cart and horse thing with the numbers we're dealing with and whether we need double runs for transportation. So we will get those out as soon as possible.
Thanks, Bob. And staying with you, if we move to district-wide remote learning, will it be possible to have Wednesday as a day off from Synchronous school for all students under this new plan?
Chris, right now, if we do close all buildings and shift all students into the remote model and everybody's operating from home, we will plan to have instruction, asynchronous instruction 4 days a week. Synchronous instruction 4 days a week, with Wednesdays being asynchronous experiences for students. Our intent is to give students a break from screens. We need to host professional learning community meetings consistent with what we would do if we were in buildings. We also need to hold grade level and department planning meetings, and we also want to give parents and faculty and students time to communicate outside of classes. And we know in the spring that time was valuable to managing all the communications and fielding questions.
Thanks, Bob. Chris, will the new secondary synchronous remote option include a live streaming video of an in-person class?
Yes, students will join the class for the explanations and lessons and have the opportunity to collaborate virtually with students in the class, no matter what part of alphabet they're in.
And staying with you, Chris, will it be possible to take classes like ceramics and tech ed in person and then sign up to do the others remotely?
So we're asking you to pick an option, not to come in for different classes like a checkerboard kind of approach. Either be remote or be in person. So no, we're not going to customize each student's schedule for who's in person and who's not in person. The exception, again, would be CTC courses, and that would be something that the families can work out with Dr. Ben Morden, the CTC director. Thanks,
Chris. And Bob, this person would like to know, if in-school students are home due to an illness, can they remote into their classrooms?
For secondary students, this is obviously set up within our plan. So yes, for elementary students, they would not be able to remote into the classroom. They would collaborate with the teacher to get assignments and be able to complete things while they need to be out. The reason is that we need our faculty focused on managing that safety plan with those young students. In addition, the elementary classrooms on average will have more students than our secondary program.
And this, Bob, is this question staying on the topic of the synchronous remote learning? Will synchronous classes at the secondary level be recorded and viewable after the class?
No, we will not be recording secondary classes. All the content will be shared with students through our course management system as in the past, but our expectation is students would be attending class. Obviously, if students want to have an asynchronous opportunity, we have the Virtual Academy.
Thanks, Bob. And staying with you again, what happens if everything changes and we shut down before school starts?
In that circumstance, Chris, we would shift right to remote learning for all students in that case.
Thanks, Bob. Chris?
Other than the virtual academy kids, obviously that would continue on as planned.
Thank you. And Chris, if the student starts in virtual academy in the fall, will they be able to switch to remote synchronous in the spring?
Yes,
And when would that be, at the change?
at the change of the semester, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And this, staying with you here, this parent is concerned about their children having math only one semester. And the question is, will a synchronous remote option, and with the synchronous remote option, is it possible to have them take their regularly scheduled math course in the fall and then enroll the next course in their sequence in the spring?
Yes, that can be possible, to take multiple levels or sequential courses back to back. It's one of the advantages of a semester block.
Thank you. And this question, Chris, concerns about screen time. Just how much screen time, meaning I think live with the class, not their independent work, do you anticipate middle school students will have each day?
That's a hard one to answer. It will vary. Just like pre-COVID time, teachers are going to provide a variety of activities and learning experiences during the class. But yes, some of those will definitely be on screen, as they were even before the COVID situation.
Thank you, Chris. Deirdre, turning to you. For elementary students, what will recess look like? Walking around 6 feet apart, a lot of teachers reminding kids to stay 6 feet apart?
So we'll be teaching students to be 6 feet apart. That'll be a big focus in the beginning of the year, both in the school and at recess time. We'll remind students and spend some time really teaching that expectation, as well as how they can play and maintain that 6 feet of space. And during recess, students will be able to remove their masks.
Thank you, Deirdre. Chris, back to you. This person writes, the synchronous option information page says students will join the in-school class every day for live instruction, but the in-school option is for every other day. Could you clarify the difference?
There really is no difference. The students are in the same class. Some students will just be fully remote, fully synchronous remote, and will not come to school. And some students will attend every other day and be remote on the day they're not in school. So there's new learning every day, again, new lesson every day, and they are in the same class and will be interacting with virtual tools.
Thank you, Chris. This person is interested in the remote program and asks, will the remote online program be like the middle school program was this spring?
It's a very good question. The answer is no. So it will be significantly different, and I would ask you to take a look at the secondary information on the district website. There's a chart that specifically compares the emergency remote plan that we had in the spring to the current plan for fall. They are very different.
Thank you, Chris. And staying with you, this is a teacher-related question. How will the teachers be able to field questions from and give appropriate attention to both in-person and remote students simultaneously?
So they'll establish learning protocols for this, for managing the class, and it will be a little bit different. They will receive professional development about how to teach in this model and how to help students connect and engage.
Thanks, Chris. Jean, turning to you. This parent says parents should know who is considered a, quote, close contact, unquote, when it comes to contact tracing and 14-day quarantines. For instance, would students sharing the same classroom as a student who tests positive be considered close contacts?
So we're still waiting on further direction on that from the Department of Health. But in answer to the question, this may depend on the physical distance and the amount of time in the space. That being said, we would still give parents the option to self-quarantine their child if they felt necessary.
Thank you, Jean. And staying with you, this person would like to know what provisions are being made for faculty and staff to ensure their safety.
The safety of our faculty and staff matters greatly to us as well. Our health and safety plan focuses on wearing masks and physical distancing to protect them as well as the students. So if an individual is concerned about the risk of being in school or at work, we will work with them on a case-by-case basis to find an acceptable solution.
Jean, again, a question related to health and safety. Will face shields be allowed instead of masks?
Any adaptation to wearing masks will require them to families to fill out an exemption form, which will include a need for a diagnosis of a physical or mental impairment.
Thanks, Jean. Bob, turning to you, this person would like to know, is the district using substitute teachers? What happens if a teacher calls in sick or has the day off?
Yes, we are using substitute teachers, so in those circumstances, we would have a substitute prepared to cover those classes.
Thanks, Bob. Deirdre, to you, how many hours would our kids have to be online if we choose the remote option?
Chris, that would depend on the grade level. For the younger grades, it would be a couple of hours, and then up to maybe 4th or 5th grade, maybe 3 hours or a little bit more, depending on the grade level.
Thanks, Deirdre. And staying with you, this person would like to know, will kids choosing the remote option be with the students from their school?
We're going to try to cluster students from their schools in the same remote class, but it may not always be possible.
Thanks, Deirdre. Jean, back to you. This person would like to know, will Delta Middle School students be able to go outside for physical education and recess?
Yes, we're encouraging them to go outside when possible and also enforce physical distancing at all times.
Thanks, Jean. And staying with you, what will happen if a teacher or child tests positive? Will the whole class go into quarantine?
So we will notify the classroom if there is a positive test, and we will also follow Department of Health guidelines and recommendations, but we will also honor parents' choice to self-quarantine their child if desired.
Thanks, Jean. And how will contact tracers know who the student interacted with?
Well, we're still waiting on further direction of the Department of Health on this process, but we assume it will be a series of questions related to who is considered in close contact. So maybe family, close friends, or people with whom they were in close contact with physically and during the day.
Thanks, Jean. Deirdre, to you, if a student starts in school in person and then the state goes to the red phase, will he or she continue in remote learning at home with the same teacher and classmates?
So at this time, students would remain with that same teacher.
Thank you, Deirdre. Jean, back to you. Will middle school students be assigned seats in classrooms to aid with contact tracing?
This has not been a recommended requirement for classrooms at this time, but we will certainly look into this with the contact tracing to see if this makes that process simpler.
Thanks, Jean. And staying with you, are there any plans for random surveillance testing of SCASD students and or staff?
So we do not have the means to do any kind of testing, but we will do random surveillance screenings where we will do random temperature checks as people are coming through the doors.
Thanks, Jean. Chris, this one's to you. This person describes their scenario as such. Our daughter is starting 9th grade this fall and has an IEP. Her learning support class was scheduled to be on B days. In the current configuration, she is no longer scheduled for learning support until the spring semester, and we're worried about her success this fall. Question is, will there be any consideration for learning support to be added in so students can get support throughout the year?
Yes, and I would encourage parents to work with the support teacher to discuss individual student needs, and I know that they have begun reaching out already to work out individual plans for students, so yes.
Thank you, Chris. Bob, to you. This person would like to know the status of the SEAL program. It was stated it will be opened, but when?
Chris, we have started planning for SEAL. Parents should receive information following August 1st regarding registration, and we'll have registration occurring on a monthly basis due to this unique situation.
Thanks, Bob. Chris, to you, this person would like to know, will all classes that are currently scheduled continue to happen? More specifically, classes such as choir, where students would normally be in close proximity, or understanding young children, where students would normally be in contact with young children.
Yes, since our students are coming to school in alphabet cohorts in half, we're able to physically distance more effectively. And we are planning to offer these classes that were mentioned, and we're working on creative solutions while still adhering to the safety plan. I know that there's a team working on the music courses, for example, and talking about how we will continue to offer them. How we'll continue to offer them may look a little different in school, but we will continue to offer them.
Thanks, Chris. Staying with you, this individual writes, My daughter will attend Delta Middle School in the fall. Will the synchronous remote learning option for Delta Middle include only Delta teachers?
If the courses were scheduled only at Delta, the answer is yes. So whatever course the child scheduled will have the same teacher they would have had in normal circumstances. And I say that because some Delta students do take classes at the high school or another school. So yes, the answer is yes. SCSI teachers, Delta teachers will teach Delta courses.
Thanks, Chris. Bob, to you, since Radio Park, Coral Street, Spring Creek Elementary Schools, and the high school are LEED certified buildings, high levels of filtration for the air handling unit should be in place. This person would like to know, what are the specifications of the filtration system? Okay, I think we'll skip over that one. Okay, this will be our final question then. Let me start over. There's a fair amount of information here. Since Radio Park, Coral Street, and Spring Creek Elementary Schools and the high school are LEED certified buildings, high levels of filtration for the air handling unit should be in place. This person would like to know, what are the specifications of the filtration system? Has the efficiency of these filters been tested in reducing transmission of disease? And how often will these filters be changed? Are they to be changed more often during this pandemic?
Chris, well, I saw Ed Poprick remoted me in a response to this, so since this is in his wheelhouse, I'm going to share or read what Ed has shared with the response. So while LEED addresses air delivery and filtration, it doesn't extend to the level that would be required to filter a virus. So in order to achieve this level of filtration, a HEPA or a MERV 17 filter would be required. We've checked with our engineering teams, and our units would not be able to support these types of filters. So we're adjusting our units to maximize outside air delivery, which would reduce the amount of air that is being recirculated. Additionally, most of the classrooms have operable windows, as I shared earlier, which could also help us in reducing recirculated air. Finally, we are purchasing standalone HEPA filtration air cleaners for communal rooms with no windows.
Thanks, Bob. That was quite a mouthful. I misspoke a little earlier. We are not taking a final question. We are just merely shifting from our submitted questions now to our live questions. And thank you to everyone who has submitted a question. The first question is to you, Bob. This person would like to know, does the remote learning plan give students access to clubs and activities?
Yes, absolutely. Since we'll be in an every other day cohort model, we were planning to do that anyway, so this recent change won't change that access. So yes, all students will have access to extracurricular clubs, activities where they desire.
Thanks, Bob. Good to know. Deirdre, this next question is for you. What will you do, meaning the district, if I change my mind about my decision before school starts?
So we had talked about working with your building principal to take a look at the space availability and the options that we have offered. Again, the more challenging one to switch to is in person, because we have to really abide by the 6 feet physical distancing based on the space in the classrooms.
Thanks, Deirdre. Jean, the next one is for you. What are the details of plans for outdoor learning which would reduce transmission risk?
So there aren't any explicit details to that. It would have to be something that's going to be discussed at the building level with principals, and if that's possible, and how we can make that possible within some settings.
Thanks, Jean. Chris, this one's for you. When secondary teachers teach in person and remote at the same time, how do they plan to present materials so that they are visible and audible by both remote students and in-person students?
It's a good question. So they'll have their content posted, they can have their content posted within the learning management system, so students have access to the presentation. They can share their screen and with the video and project. And they can also, will have some cameras and audio equipment that help aid with that as well.
Thanks, Chris. Bob, this question asks, will teachers get to freely pick if they teach in person or remote?
I addressed this earlier, Chris. No, teachers aren't able to just simply pick. If we have students in schools, we need teachers. We have a lot of other staff involved. We need bus drivers. We need support staff, paraprofessionals, secretaries, and principals to be in schools if we have students in schools. So as we see now with the 3 options, we do have families that are opting for all 3. for faculty with needs for accommodations due to circumstances. We're working through that with our HR office. We'll prioritize those first, and then we will allow for any remaining opportunities some choice. We want to place people where they're best suited, and we'll work with the principals to help make sure all our staffing needs are covered.
Thanks, Bob. Chris, this one's for you. How many hours do you expect the average high school student to need to be online per day?
That will vary every day. I can't give an exact number. There will be days where they're working on projects and they may not need to meet much as a class. There could be days where they're meeting to work on a collaborative project. All of that involves screen time, so it's really impossible to say how much of the screen time is dedicated to which kind of learning. But they're expected to join their classes, and then the teacher will present the lesson or the activity, and then the teacher will decide for that block whether they have time to go and work. It could be offline or online. So it really will vary, but they should follow their normal class schedule.
Thanks, Chris. Bob, this one's for you. Why don't we switch to an all-remote start of the school year?
Right now we've been planning for several months with our health and safety team. So we know that we can be in school safely as long as we adhere to our safety plan at this time. As I said earlier, we'll make a decision to pull the plug and pivot to remote if we need to. And I gave the detailed variables we're working on with our physicians, which also includes several epidemiologists. So right now, we really are an ingredient in the community, and from what you're seeing from our families, the vast majority want to send their kids to schools, Chris. And if we can't do it safely for the kids, for our support staff, for our faculty, for our principals, then we'll pull the plug and pivot to remote. But right now, with everything we know, we'll continue to monitor it on a daily basis. And I hope the community knows that in the spring when we looked at it, we analyzed it and we pulled the plug before the state did. And if we have to do it, we'll do it. Obviously, we know we're able to be in safe with what we've planned, and we want to do the best for our students and our community.
Thank you, Bob. Jean, this question's for you. During lunch, it's been explained to me that everyone will stay in the classroom but remove their masks to eat. Doesn't that defeat the purpose of masking?
That's why we are actually enforcing the 6-foot social distance. So we have the maximum amount of restrictions in place to provide the utmost protection for everyone. So with the 6-foot distancing and the masking, that provides another level of protection. So we are still requiring the 6-foot social distancing while eating.
Thank you, Jean. And Chris, this one's for you. I would like to know, this person writes, I would like to know how high school band chorus classes will be handled, both for in-person and for remote students.
So we continue to work on that. We're looking at some software that might aid in teaching of those classes, but we are going to adhere to the safety plan. And right now, that expelling a lot of air in a room with people in close proximity is just not an option. So we're working with the music department on that, and looking for some creative ways that we're going to continue to offer these classes, but we're going to do them in a safe way.
Thanks, Chris. This person had asked about the percentage of students who have chosen options, and I have some figures for them. So what percentage of students at the elementary level have chosen in-school learning? Right now, that's 74%. What percentage of students at the middle level have chosen in-school learning? Right now, that's 78%. And what percentage of students at the high school level have chosen in-school learning? Right now, that's 85%. So to recap, elementary level is 74%, middle level 78%, and high school level 85%. And I should note here that not all parents and guardians have made this choice yet, so the numbers could change by Monday. Jean, the next question is for you. This is actually from a student who says, I'm a 9th grade student. How will the bathrooms work? How many people at once? If there's a virus, wouldn't there be a lot of aerosolized virus from flushing, etc.?
So how I'll answer that is we will physically distance in the bathrooms and will enforce mask wearing. And so having that double protection in those areas is quite critical. So we'll be making sure that we teach that and reinforce that.
Thanks, Jean. Chris, this one is for you. Is there the option for asynchronous learning on remote days?
The teachers will be assigning work. It's not always going to be 100% synchronous. The students will log into their classes for some period of time. But again, it's what the teacher assigns. It will not be asynchronous, though, on the day they're not in school every time.
Thanks, Chris.
If families want an asynchronous option, that would be our virtual academy.
Very good. Bob, this one's for you. Have the schools tested the bandwidth they need to support remote learning?
Yes, our IT staff has been collaborating with us around all these changes, and the concept of remote learning in the secondary schools does require us to think through our wireless network in the schools. It's not a bandwidth issue that we have to truly focus on. It's the access points in the building. So we're working through that, and we have some solutions in place with direct hardwiring faculty computers into the network being part of that, so that we can make sure that all the technology we need to function smoothly.
Thanks, Bob. Chris, this person would like to know if a child is a Career and Technical Center CTC student, can he or she go to that class daily?
Again, I would ask you to contact Dr. Ben Morden, and he would be able to work out individual details with students and their situations.
Thank you, Chris. Bob, this one's for you. Are students expected to be online from 8:40 to 3:40 except for lunch and changing of classes? I'm concerned about attention spans and productivity with this type of schedule.
Well, actually, right now we do expect students to attend class. If you're going to be a remote student, you're going to attend class. But Chris pretty much answered this before in regard to secondary student experiences. So someone can go back about 10 minutes and see the explanation, because we're not going to just expect students to be staring at a Zoom screen. We're going to expect them to do a lot of other things that are going to be happening in the classroom where students are in our in-school experience.
Thanks, Bob. Deirdre, this one's for you. If a kid starts in school but wants to switch fully to synchronous learning because he or she doesn't feel safe in school, can that kiddo do that immediately upon deciding?
Again, that's something that you would need to talk with your building principal about to make sure that we can have an appropriate spot in one of the remote classrooms.
Thanks, Deirdre.
Yep.
And back to you, Chris. This person would like us to please clarify what classes will be in the fall and what will be in the spring. And I assume that means in the secondary level.
In virtual or in person?
It doesn't specify.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's say in...
So all of the courses that would normally operate on a normal semester, are pretty much running. I can't tell you class by class what's running each semester. I don't have that available right this second. I can tell you that the virtual catalog, all of the courses in there are running both semesters. Most of the courses in our in-person catalog are running both semesters. Most.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Staying with you, this question is, how will teachers simultaneously present material and be mindful of remote students' engagements? Like a question we had earlier. Will someone monitor the remote students for questions?
Yes, and we have some protocols for that we're going to help teachers with. And there's a virtual hand raising, and you can even partner students within the class, an in-person student with a remote student, and they can kind of interact there as well. So there are a lot of creative ways, and so yes, we're working on ways to keep everyone engaged.
Thanks, Chris. Jean, this question's for you. What will the hours of school be? I heard they might be changed because of transportation.
So we're still investigating what that will look like. We may have to do something at the beginning and end of the day in order for parents to have time to transport kids to and from school with the traffic flow. So we'll be updating that once we have that plan solidified.
Thanks, Jean. Chris, back to you. Person would like to know, will the virtual academy calendars reflect the district's vacation schedule?
Yes.
They will align.
They are asynchronous, so if we have a week off, they can have a week off, yes.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And the next question is also for you, and would like you to clarify one of your previous points. This person says, I'm not understanding what Christine said about secondary. 80-minute classes won't be 80-minute Zooms. So what is different between the students in school that day and those attending online?
So the in-school and online students will have the same work, mostly, again, at teacher discretion. But sometimes, for example, teachers will teach a lesson. That lesson may go with engagement, practice, and all of that for, say, maybe 40 minutes of the 80-minute block. Then they may give some time for students to read. So students are not necessarily staying on Zoom to read. That's what I was trying to say. There are some things that the teachers may say, you don't need to remain in the Zoom room right now because it's time for us to write. So they don't have to necessarily be on camera.
Well, thank you for the clarification. Deirdre, this one's for you. Will virtual academy classes have live interactive classes with an instructor for elementary students, or are these pre-recorded lessons?
So they will have a State College Area School District teacher who will have some Zoom interactions with them where they'll have the community building morning meetings, but most of the academic components of the virtual academy are pre-recorded and available online asynchronously.
Okay. Thank you, Deirdre. Chris, this is back to you. Without recording, what happens when there's a technical difficulty, as we could have experienced tonight, either at the school side or on the home side, and remote students can't connect to the class?
Chris, we have this all the time, even in person. If someone misses a class for any number of reasons because they had a field trip or a doctor appointment or were out sick, we have lots of ways of catching them up. And all of the course materials are housed in the learning management system. Teachers are very good about organizing calendars and communicating expectations, and they check in with their teacher just like they would do if it were regular school.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Bob, this one's for you. If a family opts to go for remote, can they switch to go in school at any time or back and forth as they choose?
Well, I was hoping you forgot about me there for a little bit, but Chris, I think Deirdre answered this one a little bit earlier in regard to shift to in-school is dependent upon, obviously, capacity in rooms and staffing levels, because once we get all the selections, our principals are turning around with our assistant superintendents and our directors a staffing model that adheres to the safety plan. So if there's capacity, sure, we'll make it happen. If there's not, we'll be up front. There may be, depending on the level, there might be opportunities, but it might not be a secondary class schedule that you want, and it might cause a change. Or at the elementary level, we might have all optional assignment in another building because capacity in the homeschool might not be there. So it all depends.
Thanks, Bob, for clarifying that. Chris, this is a physical education question for you. Will there be an in-person PE class in high school? Would the virtual PE still be an option?
Yes, the virtual PE is an option, always an option. And yes, there will still be PE classes, and they will, again, be a little bit different because they will be no close contact sports. They'll be adhering to the safety guidelines as well.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And a high school related question for you. For high school, what will courses that are normally half or a quarter of the year look like? For instance, would a half-year class become a quarter-year class?
Yes. So basically, a way of thinking about the semester schedule or 4x4, every class is half, but it's every day. It's the same amount of days and time that the class would have met. It's just more every day. So it's less for students to manage in terms of the number of contacts for teachers. If we have to go fully remote, this will be a great benefit to both students and teachers because they only have about 4 points of contact or 4 classes.
Thanks, Chris. Jean, this next question's for you. Since it may take days before a person requests a test and more days until results, will the district alert families if a student has symptoms and is home?
No, unfortunately, that's impossible to do with the number of students that could be sent home. So we would only be alerting families when we are notified that there's a positive case.
Thanks, Jean. Bob, this question's for you. How will social distancing and masks be enforced? Will there be consequences for not following those rules? I know you addressed this earlier this evening.
Sure. I mean, it really depends on the circumstances, and is it working with students and their parents regarding this. If a student is just simply all out defiant regarding directions they're getting from faculty, staff, or principals, then we'll collaborate with the parents and come up with a better solution for that particular student. We obviously have the remote and the virtual academy if the in-school experience with our safety plans requirements aren't a good fit for that student.
Thanks, Bob. Jean, this question's for you. How will lunch work for in-person students? The lunchrooms are usually packed.
So at the elementary and middle level, students will come down to the cafeteria and get a boxed lunch that's prepared for them and take it back to their classrooms. At the high school, they have removed some tables and chairs. There will be more variety there, but it will also limit the number of students that come into the food court area. So it will all be managed while still monitoring physical distance.
Thanks, Jean. And just staying with you, this person would like to know, how do you contact trace a kindergartner? They probably can't answer the contact tracer questions. How does that work?
Good point. So right now, of course, I've said many times, we're still waiting on some guidance from the Department of Health and what that might look like. But we anticipate for the younger kids that it would probably require some talking to the teacher in the classroom, and possibly the parents also, and finding out who they have close relationships with.
Thanks, Jean. And Deirdre, this one's for you. This person says, so am I to understand that K-2 children will only be online for 2-ish hours for remote learning?
In the beginning, that will be the case, trying to start slowly, and then as they're able to handle a little bit more, then we can build on that as we add a little bit more of the academic components into their day.
Thanks, Deirdre. Chris, this one's back to you. If a student does go to Delta but has classes at State High but doesn't want to attend the State High classes, what are the options? For example, language and math.
So they could be synchronous remote, I guess, in that situation. They could defer the class and take it at another time, next semester, and see if next semester the situation might be different. I would urge them to work with the counselors to schedule the classes if they have specific requests like that.
Thank you. Bob, this one's for you. This person says, I'm concerned about internet instability on remote days for in-school students. It's one of the reasons in-school was chosen. How will students alert teachers in this case?
Chris, we are looking at a change from the Zoom tool to a Google Meet tool. One of the main reasons for our change, which we'll be sharing with our faculty through in-service time, it's a very similar tool, very easy to use. It's within the Google suite that we know so much about. Security is built in, so we don't have to use wait rooms because of all of our IDs and passwords in the district. It also uses significantly less bandwidth. My own experience has been that I've crashed quite a bit using Zoom, and I have yet to crash, knock on wood, using Google Meet thus far in the past 3 weeks. So we're working to, use it as our administrative team right now through our meetings, and we're enjoying using it. We know that some of the features that Google is updating during the summer months here will make it almost identical with features to Zoom with breakout rooms, for example. So we're shifting in that direction. But should a problem arise, because it could still arise, contacting the teacher is the suggestion. With the Google Meet accounts, every teacher will have a district-issued telephone number, so the student could call the teacher as well and leave a message if it's during class. Obviously, email once students be able to get access online again.
Thanks, Bob. Deirdre, this one is for you. What is the status for kindergarten orientation? Will it happen? And if it does, will it be remote or in person?
So the principals are working on that at their schools, folding the kindergarten camp kind of experiences into orientation, where we will have the first day of school, where we'll have 1st through 5th grade students coming in full-time. We're going to have small groups of kindergarten students coming in for about an hour and a half without the parents, just to get them oriented to the school, which will include some of the things from the kindergarten camp. And again, starting small with that in-person situation for the kindergarten kids, like maybe 6 or 7 or 8 students at a time with their teacher, so that they get to meet the teacher, have a tour of the building, kind of folding in some of the things from the kindergarten camp for that orientation day on the first day of school.
Thanks, Deirdre, for that. Jean, this question is for you. This person says, I'm concerned about not everyone is being checked at the door for temperatures. Will this happen, and if not, why? And I know you talked a little bit about that earlier.
Right. And so we looked into that option to see if we could manage it. And the problem is really comes into the number of people coming through the door and how to socially distance them at that pace, and also do screening checks on them. So we chose the option for families to do that, and we would do random screenings as kids come in the door. And that would include for staff also.
Thanks, Jean. Chris, this one's for you. When approximately does SCASD plan for schedules to be released for students?
We're working on that right now. It's a monumental task. So I would say early August, but the building administrators will be communicating more specific timelines when we know them.
Thanks, Chris. Deirdre, this is back to you. So what are the differences in screen time for K-5, meaning what's expected for a kindergartner versus a 5th grader?
So certainly the level of independence plays into that. So if we think about a school day, starting with every single grade having a Zoom or Google Meet experience where you have a class meeting and set the stage for the day, and then moving into maybe a reading lesson where you'd have a lesson for the whole class, and then you might, with the kindergarten and 1st grade, then break into small groups via a breakout room, whereas the older grades, we might assign some independent reading off screen. So the day will go back and forth between on and off screen to give breaks. We're also trying to, with the remote days, build in like 15 minutes where go do a chore in your house, or go outside and play a little bit, so that we have that time going back and forth, so that it's not constant screen time, but it could be 3 hours so there's live screen, and then on screen, but independent activities where they might read an electronic book. We're also going to try to get real books home for kids so that they can read like books that they can hold in their hands. I don't know did I answer the question, Chris, do you think?
Yes, thanks, Deirdre. And there's another question for you too, although switching topics. This person asks, how can we expect teachers to monitor mask use among small children, special education classes, and other populations where keeping a mask on may be difficult? With those groups, will they have any help?
That's a great question, Chris, because of course we want to keep our kids safe at all times. We really want to work with families. I think having that message coming from home is going to be really important. At Radio Park, we started posting on our Facebook page like little ideas to practice wearing your mask at home, set a timer for 10 minutes to just try to get that conversation going at home. And then in school, all of our K-2 classrooms have a paraprofessional, so there's another adult in the room. And we also have special education paraprofessionals who work with students in the classroom, so there could be 2 to 3 adults who can try to help with, especially in the younger grades.
Thanks for explaining that, Deirdre. Bob, this one's for you. This person asks, why can't teachers choose how they teach, remote or in person? And similar to what you talked about previously.
Yeah, I addressed this one earlier, Chris, and people look back at that. There's no question, we're going to do what we can to accommodate people who have unique circumstances. We absolutely will be prioritizing assignments to Virtual Academy, and we're seeing the numbers tick up for parents who want to see their children in the remote experience right from the start. So we do have plenty of classes to staff there. We have vast majority of people want their kids in school, and It's not simply faculty, it's the faculty, it's all of our secretaries, all of our paras, all of our custodians, all of our bus drivers, all of our principals. We need everybody if we're going to have school. And we have what I've seen to be the strictest safety plan from what we're seeing in our entire state. And our intent is to implement that with fidelity and walk our talk. We've been working on this for months. Our board's been very engaged in the plan, asking a lot of questions. Our community has, and I'm proud of where we are. It's still a living document that's improving, and if we can't do it safely, then we'll pivot and go to remote.
Thanks, Bob. And this question's also for you, and it concerns the start of school. Have you considered delaying the start of schools or at least starting all remote?
We're monitoring this really on a daily basis, so we're considering a lot of things. We've had many discussions about our calendar changes for a variety of reasons, and obviously here's where we are at this time. If we're able to open schools safely for the in-school students, then we'll do that. Obviously if it's going to be safe for everybody involved. If we get close to the start of the school year, even if it's the day before the start of the school year and something changes and we can't, then we'll make the communications and pull them together and let families and students know, and obviously all of our employees that make this school district go and make the change. But right now our plan is geared around these three options, and for those who opt to come to school, we'll be ready and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Bob. Jean, this question's for you. What mental health support is going to be offered to both students and teachers and staff so that focus can be on maximizing learning in this very difficult environment?
So we currently have a student wellness and a staff wellness committee working diligently on making sure that we're attending to those needs. So we are providing resources to teachers, resources for students, for families. We have an integrated mental health team that meets regularly throughout the year and continues to meet over the summer periodically to discuss the increase in needs, both for the adult students within our community. So this is an ongoing focus, and we're paying close attention. We're also doing some specific training on some trauma-informed care. So we're identifying the trauma within ourselves as adults and the trauma that our students will be coming with. So we can identify what that is, what that feels like, what that looks like, and be cautious of that. In addition, we're doing some universal screening, hopefully prior to school or close to the beginning, to really help the kids identify where they fall into a high risk area, moderate risk area, or medium risk area. And so we're really looking at those numbers that will help us to identify the needs of students and what certain precautions we could put in place for them. So a lot is going on in that area. I guess to sum that up, we'll continue to really focus on that and make sure that its attention is given to it as much as possible.
Thank you for the explanation, Jean. Bob, this one is for you. Are additional personnel being hired to address the needs of students?
Well, we don't have an expansion of hiring happening. We are struggling financially. We are prioritizing programs, which means we're prioritizing people and jobs. We've been fortunate to not make major cuts. We've attrited some positions where we've seen shifts in enrollment and decreases and where we can. We have administrators like Deirdre that are doing two jobs because we're prioritizing classroom positions where students are. So, we don't have the luxury of expanding our staffing model, and as we watch the community, as we said through the budget process, that we still are concerned. If we're hopeful that Penn State's able to return. For anybody who doesn't understand the finances of that impact on the district, you can go back and look at our budget development process. We have to be prepared if they choose to not return. There's a major impact on the community, obviously, but that impacts our school district because we're so heavily funded locally. And so we're keeping an eye on that, and although we're hopeful, we know that we might have more challenges ahead of us that pertain to challenges with staffing. So we're unable to expand staffing at this time. We're looking to do the best we can with everybody we have, and I'm proud of all of our staff. As things change, if we need to make adjustments, we will, but as best we can. So that's a long answer to that, but that's we're not able to do that.
Thank you, Bob. Deirdre, this one is for you. For elementary students who choose the remote option, will they have a separate remote teacher, or will they have an in-class teacher be used, or will an in-class teacher be used via live streaming as they are teaching an in-person class?
So at the elementary level, doing a simultaneous live stream and in person, it's just not possible to also implement the safety plan. If you've been in a kindergarten classroom, you'd understand that that's not possible. So what we'll do there'll be a district remote option where students assigned to the remote will have their own teacher. And again, we'll try to cluster them with kids from their neighborhood school to the extent that we can.
Thanks, Deirdre. Chris, this is back to you. Will we be choosing classes for the semester or the whole year? And if the latter, will the school determine which classes will be assigned for which semester?
So students have already made their course selections for the year. That process occurred in, I believe, February. So the courses they selected, and then we look at the courses that have low enrollment, for example, that we couldn't run. We already made decisions on which of those were not running due to enrollment. So all the courses that they already picked out, they will have scheduled for the entire year.
Thank you, Chris. Bob, this one is to you. Will the district be going remote after Thanksgiving until the return from winter break?
We haven't made any commitment there. Obviously, as I said earlier, we'll be watching those 4 key variables and collaborating with the professionals on our health and safety team to make decisions pertaining to whether we're able to stay in school or need to shift the in-school experience to the remote model. We just haven't made that commitment yet.
Very good. Thanks, Bob. Chris, this one is back to you. Have the attendance guidelines changed?
No. So students will be expected to attend class every day. Some of the work, and the teachers will take attendance like they normally would. So same attendance.
Thanks. And then staying with you, how will remote students take their tests?
So we're working on that. We have a couple of solutions, and we're looking at, when we can, offering maybe a variety of options that teachers can choose from, be it open note, open book test, or a collaborative kind of test, or securing the tests online with software. So we're looking at a variety of options.
Thanks, Chris. Bob, this one is back to you. Is there any plan to inform parents and guardians of the number of students that will be in person by school?
So the
Number
enrollment
of students that will be in person in school. I think we would plan to communicate
I
that.
think talking about school enrollments, we have school enrollments each year, so I don't see a problem with sharing out the numbers. We shared the percentages this evening as far as how many students who are in particular buildings. Yeah, sure.
Sure. And thanks, Bob. And this is a transportation question. Any update on transportation? What will happen if not enough parents can transport their children to school?
Yeah, well, if we don't have the capacity with one bus run, we would need to run staggered bus runs, and that would shift our student days, both elementary and secondary. So right now we're trending pretty good. We believe if things stopped right now, we could make it work. But we still had I think about 1,000 students that still need to be accounted for, so there's a lot of selections, and I know some parents were waiting to see if they had their questions addressed this evening, just to improve their understanding and make informed choices. So we're hopeful that we can do that, and try to have as much routine as we can for the year.
This would be a good point to remind parents who haven't chosen yet to choose a transportation option, because that information is very important to us.
Yeah, as I said earlier, if their home situation changes and they need transportation, but they were taking care of that, they can contact our transportation office directly. That information's right on our website, and Vance Wager and his team will take care of making sure we have those kids included.
Thanks, Bob. This is going to be our last question of the night for Dr. O'Donnell. We're just getting pretty long on time here. Also, for clarification, right now, 79% of families have responded district-wide to choose their option for this fall. So we have a 79% response rate so far. The final question of the evening, Bob. If my 12th grader opts for in-school instruction and needs to stay home for an illness, can she do remote synchronous on those days?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one thing with this most recent change, and it is very flexible for students and faculty. So if somebody's ill or if somebody is in quarantine, but they're still able to access class, then we'll be able to continue to move forward, and those students will already have all the communication, all the information to engage with the class. So in that situation, we feel even better prepared to handle those cases.
Thanks, Bob. And that concludes our questions for the evening. Bob, do you have some final remarks?
I do, yeah. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and I apologize for the technical difficulties we experienced, but our IT guys are pros, and we made it through. So thanks for sticking with us, and thank you to Justin and Nick, as well as everyone else here with us in the boardroom that helped pull this town hall together. The full video will be available a little later tonight. We hope that our responses to your questions helped you better understand what you needed to understand in regard to our fall planning, and that you feel comfortable making the selection for your child's learning experience. Please remember that deadline is 11 p.m. on Monday, July 27th. During these trying circumstances, I can tell you that I'm frustrated at times, but I'm so proud of the way our colleagues and our community are coming together to support a safe plan for the fall. The future might be uncertain, but our commitment to our families and employees is unwavering. We'll implement this health and safety plan with fidelity, and when we learn of ways to make improvements, we're going to make adjustments accordingly. So I thank you again, and have a nice evening, everyone.